The old house stood on Hemlock Lane, the last house on the street, practically swallowed by the encroaching woods. Everyone in town knew to avoid it, especially after dark. They whispered stories, grotesque tales of shadows that moved on their own, of children's laughter echoing from within its empty rooms, and of a darkness that seeped into the very ground surrounding it. I, of course, didn't believe any of it. I was a rational person, a college student studying architecture, and I saw the house for what it was, a fascinating, albeit dilapidated, example of Victorian-era construction. I'd been documenting abandoned structures for a photography project, and Hemlock House was the grand prize. I'd spent weeks researching its history, finding only fragmented records and vague rumors. It had been built in the late 1800s by a wealthy industrialist named Silas Blackwood, who had mysteriously vanished along with his entire family in the early 1900s. The house had been vacant ever since, passing through a series of owners who never stayed long, each citing unsettling experiences and a pervasive sense of dread. Armed with my camera, a flashlight, and a healthy dose of skepticism, I decided to spend a night inside. I figured the worst that could happen was a few cobwebs and a restless sleep. The front gate, rusted and twisted, groaned as I pushed it open. The overgrown lawn crunched beneath my feet as I approached the house. The porch sagged precariously, and several of the windows were boarded up. A chill permeated the air, a damp cold that seeped into my bones despite the relatively mild October evening. I found an unlocked window around the back and managed to pry it open. The air inside was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight as I stepped inside. The entrance hall was grand, but ruined. The wallpaper peeled in strips, revealing layers of faded floral patterns. A massive chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, its crystals dulled with age. I took several photos, carefully composing each shot to capture the house's decaying beauty. As I moved deeper into the house, I began to feel a subtle unease. It wasn't anything specific, just a general sense of being watched. A prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I dismissed it as my imagination fueled by the house's reputation and the eerie atmosphere. The living room was a cavernous space, dominated by a large brick fireplace. A tattered rug lay on the floor, its once vibrant colors faded and muted. I noticed a faint scratching sound coming from behind the fireplace. Probably rats, I thought, but still, I hesitated before approaching. I shined my flashlight into the dark recess behind the fireplace, revealing a small, bricked-up alcove. The scratching grew louder, more frantic, curiosity overriding my apprehension. I reached out and touched one of the bricks. It was loose. With a little effort, I managed to dislodge the brick, creating a small opening. The scratching intensified, accompanied by a low, guttural growl. I peered into the darkness, my heart pounding in my chest. I saw something move, a pair of eyes, glowing faintly in the dark, fixed on me. They were inhuman eyes, filled with malice and hunger. I recoiled in horror, stumbling backward. Whatever was behind that wall lunged forward, its claws scraping against the brick. I scrambled to my feet and ran, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I fled through the house, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. The scratching and growling followed me, growing louder with each passing second. I could feel its presence behind me, a dark, malevolent force closing in. I burst into the dining room, a long, narrow space dominated by a massive mahogany table. The chairs were overturned, as if a struggle had taken place. I saw a glint of metal on the floor and realized it was a knife, its blade stained with what looked like dried blood. I grabbed the knife, my hand trembling. It offered little comfort, but it was better than nothing. I turned to face the darkness, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The scratching stopped, the growling subsided. The house fell silent, too silent. I stood there, frozen in place, listening for any sign of movement. The silence stretched on, punctuated only by the frantic beating of my heart. Then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I almost missed it. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, a voice that slithered into my mind, chilling me to the core. "Leave," it whispered. "This house is not yours." I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was paralyzed by fear, trapped in the house's suffocating grip. The whisper grew louder, more insistent. "Leave, or you will become part of this house." I finally found the strength to move, stumbling backward toward the hallway. The whispering followed me, growing louder and more menacing. I reached the entrance hall and turned to flee, but the front door was gone. In its place was a solid brick wall. Panic seized me. I was trapped. I tried the other doors, but they were all gone, replaced by brick walls. The house was changing, rearranging itself, trapping me inside. The whispering intensified, filling my head with a cacophony of voices. I could hear laughter, screams, and whispers, all merging into a terrifying symphony of madness. I ran blindly, desperately through the ever-shifting corridors of the house. The walls seemed to close in around me, the floor tilting beneath my feet. I was lost in a labyrinth of my own fear. I found myself in a bedroom, a small cramped space with a single window. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper depicting scenes of children playing. A rocking horse sat in the corner, its painted eyes staring blankly ahead. I tried to open the window, but it was sealed shut. I pounded on the glass, screaming for help, but no one could hear me. The whispering intensified, focusing on me, taunting me. "You cannot escape," it whispered. "This house will consume you." I collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I was defeated, broken, and utterly terrified. Then I saw it, a small wooden box hidden beneath the rocking horse. I crawled towards the box, my hands trembling. I lifted the lid and peered inside. It was filled with teeth, human teeth. I screamed, a primal scream of pure terror. The whispering reached a fever pitch, drowning out all other sounds. The house began to shake violently. The walls cracked and crumbled, the floor buckled, and the ceiling collapsed. I was trapped in a nightmare, a horrifying vortex of madness and decay. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end, but it never came. Instead, I woke up. I was lying on the lawn outside the house, the first rays of dawn painting the sky with soft colors. The house stood before me, silent and still, its dark windows staring blankly ahead. I was alive, but something was different. I felt wrong, distorted, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong place. I looked down at my hands. They were pale and translucent, almost ethereal. I could see the faint outline of the house through them. I tried to move, but my legs were weak and unsteady. I stumbled to my feet and looked back at the house. It was no longer a dilapidated ruin. It was pristine, beautiful, and inviting. The lawn was manicured, the windows sparkled, and the porch was freshly painted. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the light. It beckoned me forward, its voice a sweet, melodious whisper. "Welcome home," it said. I started to walk towards the house, my body moving against my will. As I approached, I noticed something strange about the figure in the doorway. It had no face, just a smooth, blank surface where its features should have been, and then I understood. I hadn't escaped the house, I had become part of it. Now I am one of the many echoes trapped within its walls, forever bound to Hemlock House. I see visitors sometimes, those brave or foolish enough to trespass onto the grounds. I try to warn them, to tell them to leave, but my voice is just another whisper in the wind. Sometimes, late at night, when the moon is full, I can feel myself changing. I feel my form shifting, reforming, becoming something else, a brick in the wall, a floorboard, a pane of glass. The house is growing, and I am helping it. So if you ever find yourself on Hemlock Lane and you see the old house at the end of the street, turn around. Don't go near it. Don't even look at it. Because if you do, you might just find yourself becoming part of it too, and you will never escape.